Jim is our presenter. He's going to be telling us everything we wanted to know and more about sharpening. And if you want, technology.
Yeah, I cuss at the technology a lot too. So if everybody would mute your microphones, that would help a little bit. And I will, actually, it's not about sharpening lathe tools in general. I just did a class on that last week, but this is how I do it. And it may not necessarily be the same as what I would teach, only from the standpoint that I have set on a way that works for me. And sometimes it's maybe the best way, and sometimes it's maybe the one I'm just most comfortable with because I've done it longer that way. So that's kind of what this is about. So let me switch over here to my my presentation here, and let me take you through just a few little bit of slides here, just to kind of warm us up just a little bit. As I said, this is just kind of the way I do it. And I'm going to kind of just give you a little bit of overview, and then I'm going to take you through sharpening some of the really basic tools, how I do them. If you got a question, because how I do it and how you do it may be hugely different, and that's just fine. Raise your hand. Technically, raise your hand through Zoom, and Richard will watch for that. We're a small enough group here with the size that I think it still is a good idea to raise hand or post a question through the chat function. And Richard will keep on top of that stuff, and then at the right point in time, forward the questions on to me so we can process them. And if there's a little dialogue, a little debate, that's fine too. We'll work it out. So this is my system. This is the one I'm using. It looks like most everybody else's. The one difference I have is I finally got rid of my half horsepower $79, I think it was at the time I bought it, grinder motor. Because I have two CBN wheels on mine, it creates a lot of weight to spin up. So I went to a 1 horsepower. And it looks like the other ones, except it's just physically bigger, which means I had to remount everything. I've got two 80 grit CBN wheels, 80 on both sides, because I thought 180 just took too long. I didn't like using the 180. I would have loved to have had a CBN wheel at 120 like we used to have in our aluminum oxide wheels. They don't make one for some strange reason. They have 80, 180, 220, and up. Well, 180 is kind of okay if you're just putting an edge back on something. But sometimes I need to change shape just a little bit, and I don't want to wait. I'm using the Wolverine grinding jigs, which I think many of us use. And the platform on the left side is not the standard one-way platform. It's the RoboRest, which is my preference. So let me talk about CBNs for just a second. When they first came out, they were all centered cubic boron nitride centered onto a steel dynamically balanced wheel. No, they run perfectly. They've been dynamically balanced, like you balance the wheels on your car. Recently, because the weight is so high on some of these, people have been beginning to complain a little bit, so they're starting to do it with aluminum. And while that makes it lighter, significantly lighter, I'm not sure how well aluminum is going to hold up in the long run in terms of flatness, not shaping down and so on. I just don't know. We just don't have much time. The other thing, because they are dynamically balanced, when we start them up, it's different than with the aluminum oxide wheels. The aluminum oxide wheels come with a great big 1-inch hole and a bunch of little plastic washers that allow you to stick it onto your 5/8 motor shaft. And what happens with that 5/8 motor shaft is the fact that you then have to balance it because it's not running absolutely perfectly true. So you take a truing stone and you make it run true to your grinder, and everything's nice and balanced. These wheels are perfectly balanced. And because they're perfectly balanced, they better be mounted to your grinder with a series of really well-machined machined hardware. First of all, the washers that come with these grinders have been stamped out of a piece of pot metal, and they're not flat. So they would tend to push the wheel a little bit out of alignment. The inserts that you might have to have, like the ones shown in the lower right of this picture, have to be machined so they run true. And the nuts, the standard nut from the hardware store, it isn't going to run true. So when you buy the wheel, if the company sells the mounting hardware to go with it, buy it or get it anyway. The point of it is that that's going to help that wheel go onto your truly well-running motor shaft better. So, and the other thing you remember, if you got one of those diamond truing stones, don't ever try to clean these CBN wheels. You'll take the finish right off of them, and they'll be gone. That's the end of that. Well, here's what my grinder setup turned out to look like. There's that 1 horsepower motor. Because the grinder is physically a little larger, I had to put an extra piece of plywood underneath it and jack it up a little bit. So the center to the Wolverine, I couldn't think of a name for a second there, has to be increased so that 8-inch wheel will slide underneath it. But the most important thing is get it lined up with the front edge of the wheel. Same thing on your aluminum oxide wheels. As aluminum oxide wheels wear down over time and the surface moves back, you may find that there'll be a point at which you can't advance your tool arm far enough to get the shape that you want. But with these wheels, since they never change diameter, they're perfect. The other thing that needs to be carefully done is you get out a ruler and you get out a square and you make sure that that arm is lined up perfectly parallel with the face of the wheel and centered on the wheel. If it's not centered and parallel, as you move the arm in and out, you're going to find that your tip of your tool, when it's being sharpened, doesn't necessarily always stay flat on the stone. It may creep from one side to the other and actually off the edge if you're not careful. A lot of different sharpening fixtures. I have them all. I use the original one-way Varigrind. And this is one of the reasons that I say this is my way, not necessarily what we would do at school. This is the one that can run off the side of an aluminum oxide wheel and drive your hand or the fixture into the wheel and cause all sorts of terrible damage. I use it. I'm using CBN wheels. And I just find that I have the other one. The one I choose to use. The Varigrind 2, I just don't use it. I also have the Woodfast. I'll talk to you more about that. It has the same geometries as the one-way, but it can do some things that the one-ways cannot in terms of handling multiple different kinds of tools and tools of a wider range of diameters. So those are what I use. I have all the sharpening platforms. The Wolverine comes with that lower left-hand one, the big square one. And I find with small tools, hand sharpening, I was running into the corners of that thing. It didn't give me enough clearance. So I bought the Wolverine smaller platform, which I loved a lot and still use occasionally. But most of the time I use the RoboRest. This is from a company called, the guy's online label is Robo Hippie. Reed Gray is his name. And he sells this thing. And the thing about it that makes it so nice is it has several fixed positions, which can be easily repeated by moving a pin in and out of the appropriate holes. And I have found that this is readjustable and repeatable when I'm using that. In terms of accessories, the Varigrinds, I've got 3 different sharpening devices. And I'm going to show you all of them. One is set up for bowls. One set up for spindles, and it also can be used for detail gouges. I'll show you how they differ. And the one in the back there is the red True Grind from Woodfast. So let me show you some of these accessories here. This is some of those washers that I was talking about. Is that camera frozen too? That's beautiful. How this stuff just chooses to freeze up like that. Well, that's this camera here, and this is our technology achievement for the day.
Yeah.
So I just unplugged it, and I'm going to plug it right back in again.
Okay, we've got a couple of comments and questions.
Good, perfect time for them. We can fill gaps while I'm trying to do stuff.
Okay.
Go for it.
Someone said spherical washers help the CBN rule wheels run true.
Yeah, they run in pairs.
Yeah, I believe I have those on mine. Is there a manufacturer or source that you like for getting CBN wheels?
The first ones I bought from D-Way Tools. That was the first guy that ever had them, I thought, originally. Dave Switzer's company still exists, D-Way Tools, and he still sells tools and wheels. The most commonplace source today, I think, is Woodturning Wonders. Woodturning Wonders.
Yeah.
They will sell you any shape of wheel, any size, any grit, with or without grinders and fixtures. It's kind of like a one source for your whole sharpening system. I bought some from there more recently. I think the prices are a little less. And I think I got my grinder from them. I bought a grinder and I said, I need one wheel, I don't need two. And so I just got a grinder, pair grinder, and one wheel, and they'll configure this stuff any way you want. You don't have to buy a fixed setup. So yeah, Woodturning Wonders is being one of the later ones. Other questions?
Are the wheels 1 inch or 1.5 inches?
The answer is yes. You can get them both. You can get them flat. You can get them with a surface on the side that allows you to sharpen, let's say, carving tools. And you can get them with radiused edges. I'm looking for my camera here. I'm sorry about that. See if I can actually get my camera to come up. The answer is probably not. Not. Okay. So on my grinder here, you'll see, let me just switch over to my grinder. If you can see on this grinder here, I have 1.5 inches wide. And there's a very small edge on the side here. Also has material on it that will allow you to sharpen. I've seen that come down almost 3/4 of an inch on the side. It allows you to lay a flat chisel up against a surface and grind something that's dead flat. A few years ago, David Ellsworth was working with Switzer and said, you know, there's a better way to sharpen grinders or scrapers. And he talked him into asking to have wheels built that had a radius edge, so it curved around. Neither mine do. Let's go back to that PowerPoint and see if I can show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so I'm sorry the picture's not very large, but let's see if we can. In this picture up here, you'll see a series of different wheels. One on the end is radiused, and some of the others are not. There's a narrow one, 1 inch, and there's 1.5 inch one. So they're available in a lot of different widths. 1 inch and 1.5 inch are the two. A radiused edge or not. Face on the side for grinding bench chisels or not. Mine are pretty standard. Yeah.
Okay, Larry had a question.
Yeah.
Larry, unmute.
I just did, yeah. It's more of a point. I used Wheel Wonders, the one you just mentioned, Jim.
Yeah.
And I think the guy was kind of dishonest. At the time when I bought it, I didn't know what wheel to get. And I asked him, you know, his advice, and he sold me 1,000 grit, which is useless.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I think he's just trying to get rid of them, to tell you the truth. 1,000 and a 180. The 180 is kind of useful, but the other one isn't. So just a little word of warning.
Good point. If you were a carver, you might find 1,000 grit useful for getting that absolute keen edge on a hand carving tool, but not for us wood turners. It just, the other problem with something that's super sharp, the sharper you get that edge, the quicker you're going to have to regrind it and bring it back again. The keener the edge, the faster it goes. One of the first things that happened when these wheels came out a few years ago was a number of the pros were finding 180 wheel. They thought, that's really great. We have a really beautiful edge. They found they're going to the grinder more frequently, having to tune that back up again. Well, Larry, I'm sorry to hear about that 1,000 grit.
So I wouldn't buy from them again, but I'd like to get an 80 grit. Do you have any other suggestions?
80 and 180 is all they got. Unfortunately, I do not know why whoever these are being made, whoever's selling them, nobody has a 120.
But I mean, do you have any?
It just doesn't make sense.
Do you have any suggestion as to who I should buy from if I'm not going to buy from them?
I'd go back to my friend D-Way Tools, and it's just D. I think it's a hyphen Way Tools. David Switzer was the guy who founded it, the first guy to come out with the CBN wheels and a line of tools. I'm not sure that David's involved in the company more. I think his health has deteriorated, and he may have sold it to someone else, but it's still the same products.
Thank you.
They're in Oregon, I think.
Great, thanks.
Yeah. What else?
A couple of people have noted that Reed Gray is no longer in business. He has retired as well. So I don't know who's selling the RoboRest, if anyone is. I guess that makes our RoboRests collector's items.
They're worth a lot more than I thought they were, right?
Very.
I got one for sale at $1,000. Whoever gets here first. So, we have them at school. I was working with Reed when he first started, and the ones I have at school are made a little differently than the ones that are on the market now. There are two versions, the one that slides into the one-way fixtures, like here, and ones that actually screw down to a wooden countertop if you're not using that kind of fixture. Well, the other problem is that all the adjustable tool rests, which all work, are not repeatable. So what you're going to have to do is to use a device that will allow you to reset the angle of your fixture relative to the face of the stone as you go from one setting for one tool to a different one. Oh, okay.
I just posted a link to D-Way Tools in chat if anybody wants to check them out.
Okay, good.
So I raised my hand, but anyway, I just looked them up, and it says that they have other grits available by order. So maybe you could get your 180 that way, Jim.
180, yes, yeah.
I mean your 120, whatever you want. It says other grits and sizes are available by special order.
If you can find it, let me know.
Well, that's what it says on their site.
Yeah, special order may mean they charge twice as much.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Well, that's unfortunate because I was going to show you a bunch of things here that I think also are important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this device here around. And we'll use this one. We'll switch to a different camera here. Let's go to this guy here. Okay, so what I wanted to show you was these are some of the inserts that can be used with your wheels. There's your 5/8 shaft. There's your 1-inch hole for these wheels. These wheels are 1-inch hole, most of them. Some of them now being made with a 5/8 hole. But this has been machined. So this is going to run absolutely true. The other thing that you need sometimes is a spacing washer between the shaft of the motor and the inside of the wheel. Well, you take a standard washer from the store. It's not flat. These sides are not parallel. I buy mine from MSC or one of the machine tool suppliers, and I can buy washers with a 5/8 hole that are flat too, and they'll give you the tolerance on it, 2 or 3 thousandths. that means that there's not going to be this wobble going like this. So you need those, and I don't have a spare nut here to show you, but you know what nuts look like. The problem with nuts is the same thing. These two sides have never been made parallel. They cut a thread in here, and these two sides are roughly parallel. Well, that thread is going to cause that thing to sit cocked off a little bit. So what we need is one that the thread has been threaded, and then this has been faced off, and this side faced off to be parallel. Otherwise, the nut typically ends up cocking that just a little bit. So these stamped washers and the nuts that go with them have all been a part of the problem of keeping these aluminum oxide wheels running perfectly straight and true. So that's one of the problems. The other set of accessories I have, which I have always used, is stuff like this. These are sharpening stones I got from Henry Taylor. They came as a set, a pair, two of them. They have a radiused edge and a radiused edge on both of them. The key is that some people, like Alan Lacer, think honing these tools after you get done is really a great idea. Well, that doesn't fit, but that one does. So I can hone the inside of the flute. And I have some gouges that this won't fit, but this one will. So you grind this and you raise up the edge you want. You also end up raising a slight burr sometimes. So you may want to go inside that flute and hone that. So a set of those. Those are from Henry Taylor. I bought them from Craft Supply. This is one I got from Alan Lacer. He was here a few years ago doing part of my master series. Again, radiused edges. This is a diamond stone, dead flat. Well, again, perfect for honing the inside of that flute. And you'll see Alan, every time he sharpens the tool, pulls this thing out of his pocket and radiuses, hones the inside of that edge. These were not cheap. I think I spent 150 bucks for that one. And it's steel, but this side is dead flat. The one I use the most is the $15 one that I got at one of the woodworking dealers. They come in different colors and different grits. This was, color's missing now. This was red, and that's a 600 mesh stone. It's the same thing as these guys. You can get them in different grits. So this is fine, extra fine, coarse, and medium. You got all sorts of sizes. My sense has been that the fine or red is the one that works best for me. Now these are perfect for working with router bits and things. I don't find them very helpful. But in this format here, I found them to be very useful. So to sharpen, touch up a tool, I'm going to take that tool, I'm going to roll it till that bevel is flat to the stone. And I can tune that up without going to the grinder. And I do this a lot. I do it because there are many places I've gone to do demonstrations that a grinder has not been available, or it's been set up not to match my bevels. So I pull this out of my pocket. I can tune up my gouge here, or I carry a whole bunch of gouges, and that doesn't seem to be something I want to do. It also works really good on skews, whether they're straight skew like this one, or radiused like this edge here. So skews are even easier. Get the goopy off of it here. Literally, you take the tool, bring it up till the bevel's flat on the wheel, on the card, and a few strokes. Skew chisels really need this to work a lot. Radius, they're a little harder, but not much. Find it, raise it to the edge, and all I'm going to do is just rock this tool back and forth slightly. One edge, and I spend my time finding where that bevel is touching. Now, skew chisels need this a lot. Before I do a final cut on anything, I always go to this. never to the grinder. And sometimes even this is more than what's necessary. Sometimes all I need to do is just to hone it. So I have this as my first choice on skews. This is a piece of old leather belt. I've cemented it to a board with the rough side up, because the rough side will hold an abrasive compound. I bought this at Woodcraft in probably 2001 or 2000. And all I do is every few months, like a crayon, I recharge that with a very fine grit. And you never push into it, by the way, you always pull for obvious reasons. Now, if you take this off the grinder and you feel the edge, it's going to feel pretty sharp. But if you go and hone it, you'll take that little fine burr that's formed on the edge of that, like this, and what you're feeling is up here. Well, and you're going to take it here, then on the other side, and back and forth. You're going to break that burr off. And you'll find that this thing gets, as Alan Lacer would call, scary sharp. It really gets pretty sharp. So when it just gets a little bit dull, I pull this out of the drawer.
With me, you've got your
3 or 4 strokes.
Academy assignments, 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, I can't hear what the question is.
It's someone needs to be muted.
Okay, we'll hit the buttons. Everybody, please, if you have something going on in the background, make sure we don't hear it.
But there was a comment. Peter Nakatani said, "Do not go cheap on diamonds. They're plated poorly, and the diamonds fall off."
Oh, before CBN wheels came out, there was diamond wheels, and there's a couple of guys in Canada who was forcing us towards that direction. It was really great, except that, excuse me, everybody began to find out very fast that they don't last, that they wear out, and they do come off. And Peter is absolutely correct about that. The CBN is centered onto the steel in such a way that they tend to last. I asked David Switzer one time how long he'd been using his wheels, and he said, "I have always been using the same wheels. I've never changed." So he sharpens all the tools he sells before he ships them, and he's running off the same set of wheels. And so whether they last forever or not, I can't believe that, but they can last very, very long. I have at school replaced one wheel, which I really believe wore out. So there is a life, but it's certainly a lot longer than the diamond wheels. So what I want to do is show you how I sharpen stuff. By the way, I showed you this compound that I bought. The other stuff I use, which is available also, this is a lifetime supply for the whole neighborhood. ZAM is well known, abrasive, works really good. I could use it too. It doesn't really matter too much. But now, even on your gouges, there's no reason that I couldn't find out how to hone the gouge. The difficulty is I don't find the necessity to do this. Anyway, let me take you over to the grinder and show you how I set up and do some stuff. I'm going to turn this camera back around where it was, and we'll just watch the seasick motion here. Richard and I had this all perfectly set up this morning. We knew just exactly where it needed to be, and probably it's never going to ever be there again.
That looks
anyway.
Cool.
So here is my grinder. This is 80 grit. This is 80 grit. But this is the one on which I'm going to do all of my gouges. I've got 3 of the original one-way Varigrind attachments here. This one is labeled bowl, spindle, and the difference is between the two is the angle between these arms, spindle and bowl. And for specialized tools, I've got This one's set up for spindles also, and this is that one from Sharp Woodfast. What's different about it, the geometry is exactly the same, so I can change from one to the other. The difference is that if you look down inside this is a V-shaped bottom, and this is a V-shaped closure. So I can go down to the smallest possible tool. The one-way is limited in the size of tools it can sharpen. By the way, if I bring it all the way up here to the top, I can lay a tool in here horizontally and do skews and other tools in here. So I like this a lot. The other thing about it, it's physically, this dimension here is about half as long as the one-way, which means that when my tool starts getting short, I can still continue to put it in the fixture for another inch or so. So I think one of these is a nice extra accessory. Because the geometry is exactly the same, you can reach the same thing, I can change from one back to the other and back and forth without any kind of a problem. The other thing that you may not be able to see really well here, down here in the bottom, there is a notch. This is 2 inches. This is my spindle gouge over here. It's a little shorter. It's a piece of wooden block. You can't see it. It's a wooden block. And this one's labeled detail gouge. It's a different length. So I've got 3 different gauging things here. So if I just do a bowl, put my safety glasses on here, grab a bowl gouge through my fixture, 2 inches. This never changes because these are my tools. They're all going to be exactly the same. I never touch that. This arm never moves. Now I could put a mark on here and move it in and out if I had to, but I don't. So this sits here. Actually, I did move it this morning. Because there is the exact mark. So if you're going to set up one, or you're going to go someplace else, the first thing you want to do is to be sure that this angle here at the tip.
Jim, can you raise the camera a little bit?
Thank you.
We can't see you.
Well, no wonder. Its head slipped a little bit, didn't it?
You were showing us the blocks.
Sure, that's nice and tight there. Okay. So I want to make sure I'm going to take this out of alignment. I don't know what the right alignment is. So I'm going to put it into here. I'm going to bring it up to the wheel. I'll put my head on the other side so I don't get between you and the camera. And I'm going to set it for approximately where I think it needs to be. And then to set the length of the side, I'm not going to move it here. I'm going to move the arm in and out to get that. So I'm going to match a tool. Adjust this angle to get the tip. Adjust this arm length to get the side. Now, how do I know? There's the advantage of 1-horse grinder. Comes up. Okay, now I'm looking at the mark I put on that tip. And it's going from the heel all the way to the tip of the tool. Well, if you can actually ever see the mark or not. There's a little bit of a glare. You can almost see it. Now, if it was touching at the heel, it means that I've got the angle too far this direction. I need to bring it back. If it's touching at the toe, I need to adjust it the other way. Now, I talk about trying to not put your hand between the wheel and the fixture. Now here I'm below it. I sharpen the side. I sharpen the side. And then I make a pass across the tip. And my experience has been to not spend too much time in this area here on the tool. There's not very much metal in that center. Most of the mass is on either side. And so as a result, I want to sharpen the sides and very lightly touch the tip. We've learned at school the same thing. People tend to want to do this here in the center a lot, or they overgrind the side and don't do the tip, and we get out of balance. So kind of watch the balance. I want this to be rounded and radiused all the way around here. So I have a side that is radiused, and you saw me pumping the handle back and forth. That creates this curve, which I prefer, where it's this direction. And the tip is rounded. My choice. This is a one-way tool. It's double-ended. I really love these because when I'm out someplace and I'm working and it gets dull, just flip it around and keep going. The day is going to get to these two sides end up starting meeting each other, and I'm going to have to replace it. But if you don't sharpen a lot, but you keep it tuned up, you'll be fine. This wheel, you may not be able to see it, but this area right here is also loaded with that CBN. So I don't even want to touch that to slow it down. If I do touch this wheel, unlike aluminum oxide, I don't know if you can see it, it cleaned the dust off my thumb. I mean, it's not going to hurt like if I did that to aluminum oxide wheel, I'd be down to the bone. So that's a bowl gouge. Let's look at a spindle gouge, a shallow fluted gouge.
Before you leave bowl gouges, have you ever tried Ron Brown's system to get a 40/40 grind?
I wish you wouldn't bring that up. 40/40 is this angle here,
Can you
40
lower
degrees.
Lower it a little bit?
This angle here, here, 40 degrees,
Yeah.
40 degrees, 40 degrees. It's really, really popular, and it's the solution to all sorts of catches and the shapes of your bowl and the ability to work with all sorts. It's what you get used to. Now, I don't know what mine was, and somebody asked me once, and I measured it, and it's not 40/40. And I don't know what, I never knew what it was, but it worked for me. So I think there's a lot of magic in the idea that 40/40 is exactly the right grind. Get one that works for you and stay with it. The fixtures here provide the opportunity to be able to repeat things and not have to grind away a lot of metal unnecessarily. So that's what I think is the real value in all these, is being able to find a series of angles that work for you. This is a shallow fluted gouge. It's much sharper. And go back here. This one's not very pointy because I didn't want it to be. I have some that are pretty pointy. So I go to the other fixture. Well, it still doesn't do it, does it? So this is my bowl gouge. This is my spindle gouge. And see how that doesn't touch? This is the detail gouge. Let me send it on down to there. That fits. Now the difference is...
Can you raise the camera?
God damn it.
Yeah. We had it all set up perfectly.
The difference between a standard spindle gouge, which hits here, and the detail gouge, which hits up here, is simply how far I've allowed this to project through the fixture. So this is a detail gouge. Here's a standard spindle gouge. And the difference is where I have grounded, fastened. See, it sits lower on the wheel. Now I'm going to show you the one of the neat things about this. Here's a little tiny gouge. That's not going to work in these fixtures. It can't come down far enough. It's designed basically around a 3/8 gouge, 3/8 to 1/2 inch, but it will work really fine here. I have to make an accessory. I have a small steel pin. I lay it in the flute. I put it into the fixture. This is a, there you go, you can see. Tighten this down. You see why I need the little rod? That V-notch won't reach across this little tiny flute. So I put a steel bar in there that sets in that V-notch. And now that tool is properly positioned in there. And this is another bowl gouge. So let's go to the 2-inch. Exactly the same. I love how it comes up in about 2 seconds. Sides, sides, one over the tip. Now my right hand is just keeping it on the wheel. I'm putting no pressure against that wheel. Just don't want it to bounce. And if this wheel is bouncing, it's because you're out of balance. And that's what the problem with the those plastic inserts. So I really love this as another accessory. If you go look at, there we go. Got it so tight I couldn't get it out of there. If you go look at their website, you'll find that also you can bring it up here and lay a skew chisel crosswise in here and do that. All sorts of things. If you're going to take these arms out and you're going to be using a CBN wheel, you can easily put a mark here so that you could take it out and put it back in again if you needed to, because you can repeat it because the diameter of this wheel isn't changing. Let's go to the other wheel. Okay. This is the Robo Rest, which is now a special, I guess. Here's where I do things like roughing gouges, skew chisels, parting tool. I do a lot of things here because I have just learned to do it by freehand. So that's a tool that's going to need some more sharpening. I have written up here on top of the grinder, spindle roughing gouges, I set at number 7. So I find where the 7 hole is, put the pin through there, and it stays flat on the platform. The biggest thing about sharpening roughing gouges is don't do this and don't do this. Keep it flat. So the left hand is just keeping it flat on the platform. My right hand is going to roll it. That's it. That's all that needs to be done. So now if I wanted to go to a skew chisel, I know I have to set this at number 4. And that's number 4. Now, straight skew chisel, line the edge up with the wheel, bring it up horizontally across, and then when you get done, same on the other side. Up. That's 3 strokes. And can you see that? It's a mirror on there. Let's do the other side. 1, 2, 3. Now, what you may not see, or maybe you can't see, do you see my finger? I pushed that burr over to the other side. Now I pushed it back. I can always tell on a skew chisel which side was sharpened last. I run my finger down the edge, and this side feels smooth. This side I can feel a little grab. That's that burr that has been rolled over. So to get rid of that, over here to my hone. Now you may feel it comes off the wheel, it feels pretty good. Guarantee, after 3 or 4 strokes here, breaking that burr off, it's much sharper. It's much sharper. And now when I run my finger back and forth, I do not feel that burr, which was there, and I would keep pushing it back and forth with this until it actually broke off. And I can actually see, you probably can't, maybe you can, a couple little spots here, which are glints. That's metal. Probably the burr that just broke off. Radius skews, the same thing. Do I have a radius skew here? I probably do. Let me go see what I can find. Someplace over here is a radius skew. And so I found this one. Now what I'm going to do here, same activity, up to the wheel and around like this. This one I can tell I hand sharpened without a grinder from the way it looked. See the difference? One more pass. This needed a little bit of work. To the other side. Now, something else I just noticed. The edge of this tool right here and here has just picked up a little bit of color. And that color has come from the standpoint that that steel has just gotten hot. With these two edges coming together, there's no metal there. It's difficult for us to disperse the heat. With high-speed steels, don't worry about it, because the discoloration does not take the temper out. But if this was a carbon steel tool, the moment you see that color, you've lost your edge. Carbon steel, ooh, there's the burr. No burr, so I know which side it's on. So I got to do the same thing. Except I had to develop a little wrist action. I don't know if you can see it. I can see it. I can see it. Oh, yeah. That'll slice my finger. Dave and I was doing a video the other day, and I touched the corner of one of these skews.
Oh, yeah.
And I stopped right in the middle of the video to see if I cut myself. And unfortunately, I did not. So parting tools, same thing. I'm just going to pick an arbitrary setting here. I don't even know what hole. Doesn't matter. Because for parting tools, this is just a platform under which I'm resting my hand. So the standard parting tool, sort of like this guy, the way I do it, my hand goes on the platform for support. The heel of the tool lays against the wheel. And I bring it up until the front edge touches. And I hold with the wheel. And that sharpens it. This is not a sharpening motion. This is only trying to find out where that bevel is so I can arrest it there. Then you see me do the same thing on the other side, but I'm not sharpening here, I'm just resting. Here, I hold still to sharpen. Heel. Now, I'm just going to hold right there. Now I've got it all, but this little part right over there, I missed a spot. I don't know if you can see it. That's done. These thin parting tools, the ones I make out of hacksaw blades, like this one, same way, heel toe. I'm done. Now, over some time, this edge is going to keep creeping up here as I grind away more metal. I can push it back down, so to speak, by simply turning over and sharpening on the other side. I use these a lot, and that's a perfectly good edge. I don't know if you can see the glint on that or not. I use the same wheel for doing round nose scrapers. Scrapers, let's see. Scrapers are position 8. And position 8 gives me about 15 degrees angle in this bevel. Now, this is the case. I'm going to put it on the platform and simply bring it around like that. Ooh, that basically is done. Because I bring that handle all the way around in front of me is the reason David Ellsworth worked with Switzer originally to radius these two edges. So you start here and you just come around the sides without having to move the handle. This has got a secondary bevel on the top. This is a negative rake scraper. And I don't know what that angle is, but I'll show you how I fix it. That's it. That's all it takes for me to create a negative rake out of the thing. I know some people say it should be 5 degrees, it should be this. It's whatever causes this edge to become less aggressive, less sharp. I do one other thing to my scrapers, the back heel, which sometimes catches on small projects. I grind it back. And by doing this, what I've done is allow this not to catch or burnish against a very narrow project. I have a lot of scrapers, different sizes, different lengths, different widths. It's because of the size of hole I'm trying to fit them into. And it happens to be the one I picked up because it's big enough we can see it. What else do I have to show you here?
Can you show us?
I want to show you a couple of things that you can't sharpen on the wheel. So I'm going to come back over to the workbench. You have a question?
Yeah, bottom feeder gouges.
Go ahead.
Can you show us how you sharpen them?
Sharpen what?
Bottom feeder gouges. Bottoming
Oh, sure.
gouges.
Yeah, I probably will stay around that same wheel, so I'll leave everything where it was. And I'll see if I can go find a bottom feeder here. Here's one. Fairly shallow. Well, I could try to match the bevel. Oh, that's a little bit too much heel. It needs to come just a little bit higher than that. So just by arbitrary angle, I'm going to go to the next hole, which is the last one, is 9. That's going to be square. No, that won't work. Okay. Find a bevel. Now, the reason I'm going up the wheel is because I have these two shoulders pulled back a little bit. You can also fan it to the side. Find your angle. And if you want to do it to the side, find where the angle is. You can always set it up with one of these one-way Varigrind fixtures if you want, and have it for your bottom feeder, but I find it's not necessary. It's a final cut tool right before I use the bowl scraper. Doesn't look very nice, but it's sharp. That's how I do it. Good question. What else?
Couple of comments. Someone asked me to post a link for Woodfast, the Woodfast jig.
Sharp Fast? Yeah.
Is that Sharp Fast?
True Grind, I think they call it.
Oh, True Grind. True Grind. Okay. That's why I couldn't find it. So my bad.
I looked under Sharp Fast, but True Grind is where you get it, I think.
True Grind. That's what we should look for. There was a comment, by the way, Crucible Steel, Crucible Steel. Alan Lacer says, don't quench that when grinding because it may introduce micro cracks.
I've heard that. Here's what I would suggest doing, though. I would suggest quenching or before you grind, because there's so much debris accumulated on these that you need to clean them. There's nothing wrong with washing them. So otherwise you don't get all that garbage, wood fibers, esters and resins and stuff on your wheels. We tend to douse, but the other thing you can do is hold the tool in such a place that your fingers are very close to the cutting edge. As a result, when my fingers start getting warm, I know I'm getting too hot. So you really shouldn't get too much heat because you shouldn't be pressing very hard. Good points. Good points.
Yeah. And are hacksaw blade tools high-speed steel?
Yes. Yes, you can buy hacksaw blades that are different kinds. I go to MSC Industrial and I buy high-speed steel hacksaw blades. So they are just as good as any of the other tools. The thing I do then is come over here to one of my aluminum oxide wheels and I grind away the teeth. And then the second thing I have to grind away, which is even more trouble, is getting that powder coating off the surface. These are powder metal coated, this area here. And when you go down to a narrow slot, that creates more friction. So what I've done is clean that off. I have a purple Scotch-Brite wheel set up here. I can actually buff that off. A chisel can also cut that off. A skew chisel or a regular chisel. But get it off of the working area. So I didn't need to clean it back any farther than about here. But yeah, get that powder metal coating off of there. This is an ETM brand. That's the only thing that's remaining on this tool. But, you know, I've probably shortened this thing a ½ inch since I've had it. And we have a whole bunch of them at school, which sometimes the stock goes down just a little bit. But I have purchased some more, which I have made up, that are made. Here's a Starrett. High-speed steel, 12" by 1, 14 TPI. Well, that doesn't mean anything anymore. The difference between these two tools, and you can't see it very well, can you? The Starrett's a little thinner. Very little, but it's slightly thinner. And it's also thinner in this direction here, which means if I'm going to go inside and cut something, sometimes the height of this tool prevents me from working inside a certain size curves. It tends to want to bind. So having one that's a little shorter and a little thinner works. Now, the smaller, thinner, shorter they are, the less likely you're going to be able to use it over the tool rents very far. They begin to start vibrating. You got to stay fairly close on these. But this is the one I just recently made. It was a Starrett RS1214-5 with a Starrett number for it. High-speed steel, 12 by 1 inch. And I think I must have bought 6 or 8 of them. They're probably, I'm going to guess, $6 or $7 a piece. They're not very expensive. And this will last me, again, a lifetime. Again, there's that powder metal coating that I needed to take away. One of the things we get into a lot, let me bring one other, I want to show you tools that we use for doing beads. And beading tools are kind of an interesting thing because you can really mess them up if you do them wrong. I have one of the, I thought I had one of the Switzer big ones here, but I don't see it right at the moment. Anyway, smaller one will do. This is the back. It's a fluted tool. The only way you sharpen it is take that back edge right here to the grinder, and you can sharpen this tool very nicely by just touching it to the grinder, as you would a rough and gouge or a parting tool. This kind of beading tool, not so much. This is the one from Sawdust. Don't ever touch anything inside that flute. So the only way you can sharpen this is come in with your honing stone, lay flat on the surface, and hone that face. If you try to touch it anyplace else, you'll destroy the shape of its curve. And this is used flat down. This is a scraping tool. And the only way you can sharpen is this way. And normally it just takes a few strokes and it's back and ready to go again. David was talking earlier about hollowing and hollowing tools. This is one of my deep hollowing tools, kind of an Ellsworth style. And this is high-speed steel. It could be ground. Actually, it's too long here. But I find that if you try to come in here and hone the face of this, you'll be 99% of the time unsuccessful. And the reason is it's so small, it's hard to keep that tool flat, and it needs to have a really good flat edge. So I don't do that. So I'm doing this. I'm stroking up the back edge. And believe it or not, well, see, this is one that needs a little cleaning. A little dirty there. But I'll sharpen it by honing that back edge. And that's it. Oh yeah, I can feel it. I raised a little bit of a burr. These will work. So when these get dull and you're doing one of those hollowing jobs, Peter, keep that tool sharp. And all you got to do is by taking it to any of these. Actually, this little tiny one might be fun too. I never tried it with the little one. So I'm keeping the angle to the bevel, and I'm actually just rolling the tool. That worked. That worked pretty good. I'm surprised nobody asked me about diamond tools. Anybody know how to sharpen those things? I've never figured it out. Okay. Well, let me show you. This camera here is the one that's working. See what I can do with it here. Watch for the nausea again here, because I'm going to take the camera to someplace else and show you how I do.
And while he's doing that, other people have been busy looking up the True Grind grinding system and posting them on the chat list. So thank you very much for doing that. You all know how you can save the chat if you want to from a Zoom meeting. If you want to, and you look on the open the chat window, you'll see where it says where you can compose your chats. It's to so and so. Then if you go to the right, you get file, and then there are 3 dots at the far right. If you click on that 3 dots, you'll get a menu. The top of the menu is Save Chat, and it will save it on your hard drive. So if you don't want to write these things down or click on them right away, you can save it for later. So
Where,
Jim,
where,
your
where do you find it on your hard drive?
your camera has frozen. For me, it's Documents, Zoom.
Okay.
Your camera's frozen.
Yep, I see that. So let's see. Do I have any cameras working? This one over here still does.
Ay, ay, ay.
Life is fun.
Yeah. May you live in interesting times.
Yes. Well, actually, it's probably a better idea in the first place because I have a lot longer line on this guy. Okay, I'm going to come over here to another grinder I have. Let's see, what are we looking at here? Well, a little low. Okay. I'm going to come up here a little bit. And that's a little. I'm trying to get to this grinder right here. Okay. That'll do. So I have a.
We're still seeing the frozen camera.
Oh, I should change the cameras then, shouldn't I? Let me fade over then. That's good. So you didn't get to see all the bad work. So here's a pyramid tool. Problem is, how do you make these things in the first place? Right. Well, it's a two-step process. I have a stick here that allows me to position how far this is going to stick through a triangular piece of plastic to which a small set screw has been added. So now when I go to where I sharpen them, here, that's face 1, face 2, face 3. Can you see that?
Yep.
Started? Okay. We got my glasses on here, and this is when I make them. I do it this way. Resting on the back edge. Now that works great for manufacturing. And so for you to sharpen these things, you got two choices. You can take and make yourself a little round piece of plastic with a 3/8 hole in it, or 3/8 for a 3/8 shaft. Put a set screw in one corner. And then you come up to your grinder, set it down, rotate it until the face touches, and lock the screw down. Or you can sharpen them like I do. So let's go sharpen it. I'm going to go to back where we were. And let's see what kind of picture we might have here. Problem is I can't see the screen.
Put down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay. 3 faces, heel toe, just like that parting tool. But don't wiggle it. Once you've done this side, don't pick up, look at it, go back and try again. You won't get the same cut. So lightly rest it. There's the contact. There's the face. Next face, lightly rest it. Bring it down to contact. Hold still. And the third face. Let it find itself. Now, I don't know. Can you see that burr on this one? On that edge?
I don't think we have the resolution for it, but
No. Well, my eyes don't hardly have that resolution anymore either. But the point of it is, there's a burr right there. And there's a burr right here. And probably there's one there, I can't see it. But the key is I've just sharpened that tool. And so next time I use it on a project, I use this face up, and if it gets dull here, I get 3 opportunities to use this tool until it gets dull again. And so I don't need very much to worry about that. So let's go back to our Q&A time. That'd be this front camera right here. Got me back here. Good. Okay. So let's see what else we might have in terms of questions.
Peter, what's your comment on the triangle tool?
Peter Nakatani?
Yep.
Must be muted, guy.
You can only unmute yourself.
Okay. No, I
There you
was
go.
pushing down the space bar and it didn't work. So I don't know. Did I make that tool? The plastic thing?
I don't know. Did you?
I may have, but see, the thing is with that, what I do is I glue the round bar to a block of wood and then push it up against a disc grinder or something. And that gives me a flat on the round bar, meaning that screw will, when you need to resharpen, it's going to index it correctly.
Hmm.
You mean nut?
Huh?
You mean a nut, right?
Well, no, the set screw. The set screw
That's
will,
true. Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it. Got it. Got it.
yeah, will
Here's
index
the other
on
thing
the
some
flat.
people do is you make a nut, take any nut off of your out of your trash bag that the shaft will fit over, fasten that down. Nuts are 6-sided. Every other side represents 120 degrees, so that you can put it against one flat of the nut, sharpen, rotate over 2 and do it again, and rotate over 2 and do it the 3rd time. So you can make one out of any nut that you can then fasten solidly to the shaft of your tool. Works real fine. I use the plastic because I got a lot of it, and it works for me anyway. Other comments or questions?
Jim, Mike Violette.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I wanted to just show you, this is the Ron Brown jig for the 4040.
Mm-hmm.
This goes in the slide arm, and then this goes against the wheel. And then he uses the regular Varigrind, and the extension is there. And then what you get is a 4040 grind. And this is the old Mahoney Henry Taylor 5/8 wood beater.
Hmm.
So I
So
really
what-
like it. I mean, it really makes a difference
Well,
to me.
so comment on that. If you listen to Stu Batty, he says that doesn't work because the side angles, the angle that you're grinding on the flutes is incorrect.
Well, I had thought that, but one of the guys in our wood club, who's a big fan of Ashley Hargrove, bought this thing on my suggestion, and he got back to me and said, Mike, it works.
Okay.
When you say it works, what is it that happens that lets you know that it's working?
It seems to cut easier. You seem to have more control, and it leaves a nicer finish.
Okay. Now, the guy who makes hats,
Thomas?
whose name would leave, help me,
Hannes?
Johannes Michelson.
Right.
He has a grind that's different again. And if you're playing around with trying different ideas, here's something to try. The back of his gouge has no bevel, it's radiused from the heel all the way up to the edge. So he goes to the grinder and he literally does an angle like this. So that means wherever he touches that tool, the only bevel that exists is that one, that micro distance right behind the edge. And it's what he chooses to use. It's a very interesting grind. And if you've never tried it, it will take a little getting used to, but it is another idea.
The last time I saw him, he had developed a jig for making 3 concentric cuts for the grind, which it's not exactly a smooth curve like you were describing, but it does the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Gives you the different options of places to go with it. So guys, that's all I had to share with you. This is how I do it. I'm sorry about all the technical problems. My 4 cameras, 2 failed. And we have tested this thing out carefully, but apparently not so much. So thank you for bearing with me through all this. Any other questions? I'll be happy
the
to
other
answer.
thing.
Yeah, Peter.
Powder paint remover will take off that powder paint.
Will it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good idea. I've never tried a paint remover. I just use mechanical force and peel it off. Good idea. Okay.
Good presentation, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. How's the Beads of Courage going?
It's going great. I have over 20 here that are ready to donate. The gal that I donated to, I think, is on vacation this week. But my house is covered with boxes.
Yeah, and I think we've got some more going to come up at the next meeting. I've got another one that's just finished. So thank you for all the hard work in putting this program together. I think you may have overpowered one hospital and maybe looking for a second one now for a while, huh?
Well, I think all the guys that have really stepped up, and it's really nice. So thank you all.
Yeah. So Larry, I don't agree with that statement. I think all of us wanted to do something like that even before, you came up with the thing, but we're kind of like lazy and we don't want to figure out how to do everything to get it to the proper people. But you're making it easy for us to, do something and donate it and have it go to where it should go. Because those poor kids are in such a screwed situation. And, like I said, we're happy to help, but, if you actually look at their website, they want you to register with them before you donate to, if it goes directly to Arizona. And it's like, okay, yeah, right. But like I said, you're making it easy for us to help those that need help.
Well, thank you, Peter. I think the reason they want you to register is probably, because of their little kids and all the weird things that can happen with that.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as my participation, I just raised my hand to go to the bathroom and being a good Catholic boy, and I had to come up with something when they called on me. So, but thank you, Peter.
He's a new guy on the board, and we got him coming in. Well, we appreciate all the work that you are doing for it, and the fact that there is an intermediate between us and the hospital is the only way the project's going to get done. And once you've got it going with one, and the word gets around the community, we have so many hospitals here, all dealing with kids in various different straits that I think they're all going to appreciate it as soon as they know that it's there.
Yeah, Dave Fleisig has also looked at it. He has a friend that works for Oakland Children's and all that, so he's got some contacts for us too. So he's been real helpful too.
Yeah, I was thinking Children's Hospital might be one of the next places to consider after the ones locally here. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe. Get your injections as soon as you can. Most people I know are waiting for their second one now, so that's really good news. And in terms of opening back up and meeting together again, we still are holding out for summer picnic as being our starting point. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jim.